He's Danny. I'm Grant. This is The Fan. Double play every day this time, driven to you by your local Washington area Honda dealers. Stop in for a great deal on the rugged and capable Honda Pilot. Contact your local Washington area Honda dealers today. Each and every day, what's going on in our lives, nothing to do with sports. Remember, we got Wizards tickets, top of the hour in 15 minutes. We got Caps tickets at the top of the 5 o'clock hour, about an hour and 15 minutes from right now.
Had a little informal meeting this morning with the lady wife, and I believe I can officially declare with the hit of complete purchase, we are done with our Christmas shopping.
Attaboy.
We did it. We did it. Oh my God. First of all, okay, on several fronts. One, that really escalated quickly. Brick killed the guy. Two, the gift that I want is to save money. So that's what I've asked for to Santa, and to her and to my kids and to you guys. So let's all save money. That's going to be the big thing that we do to give the gift to Dad. It's the gift of thriftiness and being frugal. We're going to do that for a while.
Sounds
that's a lot.
Very unfun.
Yeah, I don't give a damn about fun. I had my fun. I went to New Orleans and I gained a bunch of weight. I've had enough of the spending. There's so much spending. It's all just, I get it. I know why we're doing it. I signed up for it. I get it. But that's enough. That's the end of that.
Aren't you excited to give people nice presents?
Of course,
in the holidays.
Of course, 100%. It's what I signed up for, and I okayed a couple major expenditures on that front. Right?
You okayed them.
Of course, I did. This is the whole point. It's why we work. It's why we do it.
Have you taken the kids to see Santa?
No, they're too old for that. Anyway,
one of your kids is 6,
almost 7.
He's not too old. That's literally the age where you go see Santa.
Sure.
Where you send your letter.
Somebody could. What was that? Oh, yeah. So Holiday Magic.
You were talking about the part where you don't like the holiday.
No, it's wonderful. Holiday Magic is parental work. I'm happy to do it. It's what I signed up for. We did the work, though. It's over. It's time. Let's stop the spending. That's what we're looking for, is an end. We did it. It was the right thing to do. I'm going to do it again next year. It's why I do all the extra things. It's why I do the cameo.com/DRouillet. It's why I work. It's why I do the endorsements. It's why I'm doing voiceover ads. It's why I do private coaching. All the extra stuff, the extra scratch. It's for this. Now we did this. Let's not spend $1 for like 6 months.
When are we going to take the kids to see Santa?
Who's we?
You and me. We're going to take them to the mall to see Santa.
What a terrible idea. I'm not doing that.
Have they sent Byron sent his letter off to Santa yet?
Yeah, we did that.
Okay. And did Santa give him a call from the North Pole?
Did Santa call him?
Yeah.
No, Santa didn't call him.
You got to schedule a call with Santa.
Is that a thing in all sincerity?
Yeah, Santa calls.
Who does it?
Santa.
Does he?
He calls.
He does.
He's like, hey, James.
What do you do? 1-800-SANTA, and then he just calls?
What do you want for Christmas this year? I got your letter. And nothing like that?
No. But do people do that?
Santa calling kids?
Yeah.
Of course.
That's a thing?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You know what else is a thing? Taking your kids to the mall to sit on Santa's lap so they can tell Santa what they want. For a lot of people, that's a thing.
Sure. Many people do that. And that's why I don't do it. Just waiting in line.
There's no, you can pre-order all these things now, book a time. There's no lines anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to be in a line, you can be in a line.
What if you don't want to be in a line?
Slacks did it, no line. I do it, no line. It's just a thing. It's so easy. So fun. You get to see the kids smile. That's the dream.
Cry and scream, being on a stranger's lap. That's the best. That's the memory.
The magic of the holidays,
That's the holiday magic right there. Just parental effort.
All right, that's your line. I forgot it. There it is. The magic of the holidays, Danny Rouillet. But parental effort.
Yeah, it's parental effort for the kids. That's the whole point. It's why you do it. It's for them, to make them very happy. And that's what we're setting out to do, and we did it. Now let's shut that valve off.
So I'm proud that you are done shopping.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, I don't think. Yeah. I don't think I'm close.
Well, you don't you and your brother love the bit of going like Christmas Eve at like midnight to try to
back in the day when I was like, I mean, when I was at home, me and my brother would go to the mall. Yeah, growing up, that was a thing. But now it's hard because I got kids and we got the whole deal. So I got to get this done. I got to make moves. Mm-hmm. One of the next couple of days, might be tonight, might be tomorrow. I don't know when. I'm going to have to go do some shopping after the show probably. Just knock a bunch of stuff off the list because you start to get that anxiety building up of like, when am I going to do this?
So the thing that I got for you, I'm not going to spoil anything, but it's like it's not that much fun. I think it's one of those like, hey, I think you could use this kind of deals. You know what I mean?
I like that.
But I feel like it's a combo of thoughtful and practical.
Thoughtful and practical is a great gift.
Right. It's not frivolous. It's not like, hey, get your skydiving lessons. Live a little.
Well,
you know what I mean?
I hope you didn't do that.
Yeah, I didn't this time.
This time you
This
didn't.
time.
It is time for my double play. I will make this very, very quick, Danny. I want to watch the movie Carry On Netflix. It looks awesome. If anybody's seen it, please tweet me. Are you familiar with this?
Yeah, it's in my queue. Jason Bateman going, hey, bud.
Yeah, it's Jason Bateman, I think, as the bad guy, from what I can gather. It's Taron Egerton, who I'm always amazed actors can just sound like they're from here that aren't. How do they do that?
It's a little too easy. Yeah, I'm with you.
I know you're a British guy. I know you have an accent, but then in the trailer, you're just a guy from like Dunedin, Florida or something.
Yeah.
I don't get it. But anyway, he's in this movie as I can't tell if he's a pilot or possibly a flight marshal.
I thought he was like a TSA dude.
Oh, maybe he is. He sits there and scans and looks at your ID or whatever, but he finds a message and he's got to go do something. It looks like it's a 10 out of 10. And it's just a Netflix original OG. You know, I'm big on Jason Bateman. Can't get enough of him. This is a must watch for me.
Did you do Ozark, by the way?
I watched a season of it. Like most shows, when there's a several month break, you lose me. But I watched the first season.
How to get you? It's such a delicate sweet spot for you to be able to pay attention through a show.
Miniseries, man. Movie or 6-8 episode miniseries.
Yeah.
Let's knock it out in a week and let's move on to
captivating content and a lot of anticipation for more.
I love that too.
Yeah.
That's always good.
Yeah.
Next, we got Wizards tickets and a Beltway Blitz for you. Some news potentially trickling out on the RFK site. Just how sure are we? Everything's going to go swimmingly. We'll get into that in about 35 minutes on the Fan. And remember, at 4:30 today, our show announcement you will want to hear if you are a mark of 106.7 The Fan in this radio program for G&D. It is a Wizards Wednesday, so congrats to caller 10 at 800-636-1067. You're going to win a pair of tickets to see the Wizards and the New York Knicks on December 28th. For the official Wizards schedule and tickets, go to thefandc.com. We've got a chance for you to win tickets to see the Caps, one of the best teams in hockey, in 1 hour right here on The Fan. Make sure you're listening at 5 when we blitz the East. We told you at 4:30 today we're going to be talking about the future of the Commanders trying to build a stadium at the old RFK site. But we'll kick off the Beltway Blitz, getting some intel on that right now. And to help us get some of that information is Charles Allen, who's been on our show in the past. He is a D.C. council member representing Ward 6. So, Mr. Allen, thanks for the time. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for joining. I appreciate it.
You got it. So first and foremost, explain to me as a dumb person, what has to happen now when you guys do get the land back? How does that land become the stadium eventually? And will it?
Yeah, well, let's start there, right? I think no matter your thoughts on whether there should or should not be an NFL stadium there, every DC resident, every DC leader is very glad to see the legislation that gives DC control of the future of that site, right? It's been locked away from us for a very long time. I think it's a great opportunity for us to frankly build more city. It's right on top of Metro. You know, the cost of housing and everything else is so high. It's an opportunity to build more housing, create more jobs, create more parks and businesses. But we will now be able to have the site control of that land. And that really opens up the future and the vision for what it's going to be. And we're going to have a big fight probably over a stadium or not. But no matter what, we should be celebrating that we now control what's going to happen there.
Do you believe a new stadium will be built there?
You know, it's unclear at this time. I mean, I know obviously the Commanders would like that. You know, I've been on the show before, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not somebody who's opposed to stadiums. I fought hard to make sure that DC kept Cap One Arena. I've been a strong supporter of investing in Nats Ballpark. And why is that? Because it's a math problem. When I know that we can invest your public tax dollars and get a really strong return. Cap One Arena is active 250 nights out of the year. The ballpark's got events happening 120 nights out of the year. These places are active all the time, bringing people down on top of Metro, really great for the businesses around them. NFL stadiums, when I talked with the Commanders, they said they thought they'd hold 20 to 25 events per year. That means it sits dark 90% of the year. I don't think that's a good return on the investment. So if DC residents are asking if I think I should be spending hundreds of millions of their dollars on an NFL stadium that doesn't have a return on investment, I don't think that's a good deal for DC.
Do we know how much money they'd even be asking for? Because Josh Harris is building a stadium in Philly right now, an arena with his own money for the Sixers.
Yeah, well, I mean, now that DC has control of the land, I think the negotiations will certainly ramp up, and I think you'll also see Maryland. This is part of why they didn't want to see the legislation move forward. Maryland now knows that they've got to compete. So Maryland has said, Governor Moore has said he wants to write a big check and help out. And I don't think that's the best use of my tax dollars. I mean, think about the trade-offs I've got to have, and that's where we are now. The hard work really begins now. What are the trade-offs of putting hundreds of millions of dollars into this? Whether it's the horizontal work underneath the stadium or the stadium itself, it's still going to be a lot of DC tax dollars.
Charles Allen, DC council member with us on Grant and Danny, always very, very kind to hop on with us. I will say I always reach out to a bunch of council members, and you're one of the few that ever responds and actually comes on. So I really, really appreciate
I enjoy talking with you guys. I enjoy it.
I love that you do. Very candid, and it's very cool to get you on the program. My question is like about actually the process. So again, this is a explain this to me because I'm dumb kind of thing. But it seems like the mayor is gung-ho about the stadium and wanting the team to build there and all those things. How does this actually work? Do X number of the council members have to agree? Does she have the full sledgehammer to say, I don't really care what Charles Allen thinks? Like, what is the process here?
Yeah, no, great question. So the land is actually owned by the National Park Service. And so from a congressional standpoint, they now give the district the right to develop this site. And so that's kind of step one. So next up, what'll happen is the mayor is, and frankly already has been, in negotiations with the team to map out a proposal. Whatever she decides to put together as a proposal, she has to submit that to the council for a vote to approve it. So I have no doubt. I mean, the mayor's made very clear this is what she'd like to see happen. So she's negotiating to try to achieve that. And the deal will then get brought to the council. We will have public hearings on it where, I guarantee you, just like the ballpark ones, are going to go till 3 o'clock in the morning. Hundreds of folks will come out and testify either in support or opposition. And at the end of the day, the council is going to have to cast a vote on it. And that'll be the decision point.
Councilmember, you can tell you're dealing with a couple of guys that do running backs and shortstops, a little bit less political process. So again, forgive kind of the nature of these questions. So
No problem.
So help me out on this one as well. I remember pre-Cap One, or the Wizards and Capitals and companies staying in DC. I remember you were advocating for, hey, let's deal with what we got here. Let's renovate them. Let's prioritize that over something else. I remember it being an either or type question in terms of budget and money. And I remember then, and again, forgive me if I've got some of this wrong. I'd love for you to correct me. Then once the announcement is made that Monumental is leaving, then it's we actually found hundreds of millions of dollars unexpected. And now we can use that. I've again, sort of the latest to me was there's not much money for anything else because we're pretty leveraged, pretty committed, pretty in debt, and we're not really wanting to take on more. And everybody sort of seems to be cutting to the end where there's a brand new stadium and a bunch of things on the grounds that we can go to. I guess the question long term is, A, does that timeline track? B, where's the money coming from if there is some?
Yeah, well, there's no money in the budget right now for a new NFL stadium. It's a very fair point about Cap One Arena. So what happened in that situation was that the CFO, our chief financial officer, renegotiated a bunch of the city's debt, for example, and was able to free up about $500 million in what we call capital dollars, which is different than operating. So the capital dollars are one-time expenses, and that's really what we used to be able to put in the district's share of its contribution for the Cap One and locking that down. And again, let's think about this from an investment perspective. That's an investment that we make using your public tax dollars. It's an investment we make, but we know the return on investment is going to be good. We know that we generate hundreds of millions of dollars in economic activity at the Cap One Arena. So from my side of the ledger saying, I need to know this is a good investment. Sure, it's fun. I mean, listen, I like going to a Caps game, going to Wizards. I'm so excited I finally got something to cheer for on Sundays with the Commanders. But that doesn't mean that I need to have a huge investment of public dollars on it. I've got to look at the return on investment. My job as a council member, not as a fan, is to look and say, does this add up? Does this make sense? And is this in the best interest of the district? And that's where with Cap One Arena and the ballpark, the answer is a yes for me. With an NFL stadium, no, I don't think it's a good investment because I don't see the same return coming back.
So, I mean, it sounds to me like, and I'm not judging you as much as I'm speculating, that you would not vote to build a stadium on the land.
As of right now, no. I mean, it is a, I obviously there's no proposal in front of us right now, but it's the sheer amount of money we would have to put into this right now. I think there are other priorities in the city because the funding, we're not going to have the CFO renegotiate bonds and all of a sudden find hundreds of millions of dollars that can just be used one time. It's going to be tax dollars. It's going to be operating funds. And that's a different thing. That means I'm competing with teachers in classrooms. I'm going to be competing with every other thing that you need your city to do. And that's why, again, I just don't think I see the return on investment here. Let's also look at what, in the congressional action they just took. Congress mandates that we have to build lots and lots of parking to go with this. The Commanders have said they want something like 15,000 parking spots around this. That's a massive amount of just big parking lots all over. That every square foot I'm doing to that, I'm not building housing. I'm not building new businesses. I'm not creating new jobs. I'm just pouring asphalt. And that's not what I think we want to see. And it's not the vision of the future of our city that I look for.
So this is my opinion. I want you to react to it. My opinion is that a stadium, I agree with you that baseball, 81 dates, basketball, hockey, multi-use concerts, all that. Every study shows those are more beneficial to a community, let's say, than an NFL stadium. Although with a roof, which I think this one would have, I think 20 dates is light. I think it'd be a lot more than that. Having said that, I get your argument there. But if I'm judging a stadium against like your perfect solution of what would be there, whatever you would like there, that's also not necessarily the reality, right? I mean, it could just be that nothing's there for a long time. Like Nats Park is the reason the Navy Yard became what it is. But before Nats Park, the Navy Yard, years and years of kind of like, oh, we're building stuff there, except that they weren't and nothing was happening. So, like, correct me where I'm wrong here.
No, if you remember with the ballpark area, we built Yards Park first. So we built a huge park, and that started generating all the businesses right around Yards Park. And that was done in concert with a master plan to build a stadium. And so all of those things went together around what you could create there. If you think about a stadium, just the massive footprint that an NFL stadium takes up, and then all the parking lots that go around it, that just takes up a huge amount of space that you can't build other things. Now, if we start building other very attractive things in that space, homes, businesses, it's all on top of Metro. That to me is the opportunity. But we've been unable to do it so far because we didn't have control of the land. And that's why, again, I said at the very top, whether you agree with the stadium or not, you should be supportive of the district getting control of the land, because now the future's in our hands. We get to decide and debate. We get to argue with each other and then ultimately cast a vote as to what's going to actually be in that space. Before, you hit the dead zone because we couldn't do anything with it. Until we unlocked this from Congress, we were all stuck. And I think that's why everybody should be on the same page that this action's a good thing. We now have control of the site. That's a good thing. What we do with it, that's where the fight and the hard work really begins now.
Councilmember, have you sort of informally polled some of your colleagues, just sort of wondering what the pulse is now among the council for that site and what's to become of it?
I think the council probably runs the gamut, just like probably a lot of residents do right now.
Sure.
There are some folks that are just enthusiastic, whatever it takes, let's do it. There's some other folks that are, I'm not so sure this is a good idea. Other folks say, show me the proposal. Let me see how the math works. So I think the council is probably about where the city is right now. Some folks, it doesn't matter what the proposal is, they'll vote for it. Some folks don't really want to see this, and a lot of folks that say, convince me. Let me see what this looks like. And I think we're going to have a very healthy debate about what this looks like. I've got a lot of confidence in my colleagues to think about it in a very thoughtful way, to try to work collaboratively to help think about what this looks like.
Last thing here, in a great time, good conversation here as always, and very gracious with his time. Charles Allen, council member in DC, is with us. Somebody says hosting less events may be true, but what if those events are Final Four championships, college football playoffs, Super Bowls, and the kind of business that would bring to DC? What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what, when I talked with the team, the 20 to 25 events they talked about was encompassing those types of things, Final Four events, things like that. Now, we host some of those things at Cap One Arena. I've heard some people say, well, but wait, you're going to have concerts, and isn't that going to be a great event? Well, we have concerts at Nats Ballpark and at Cap One Arena. So if all we're doing is moving a concert from one venue in the district to another venue in the district, we haven't actually created any new economic activity for the district. It all kind of washes out. I guess if you could get Taylor Swift to come in, that might be an outlier, right?
The Taylor Swift amendment of the bill, yes.
There's only so many times you're going to bring Taylor Swift and Beyonce into a concert venue. The rest of the time, we're really competing against ourselves. So those aren't net new events to the district.
Councilmember, this is always really kind of you to join us and give us some info on the lowdown on what's going on. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, guys. Happy to come back anytime.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Means a lot. There's Charles Allen, Ward 6 in DC. And we get a lot of statements sent to us from a lot of people. He actually comes on and answers our questions.
Love that.
Which is very cool.
May not always be the answers you want to hear, by the way, but
exactly.
it's what's going on.
I just like being able to ask the question.
All
right, let's keep the blitz moving. We got our guy Johnny Goalie on the line. Brent Johnson, longtime NHL goaltender. Buddy of mine I work with over at Monumental Sports on Altcasts. Brent, 2 straight games for the Capitals where they've lost road games, which hasn't happened all year. And last night was a real bummer, man. They gave up 3 unanswered in the third period to a bad Blackhawks team.
Yeah, you're right. And thanks for having me on, Grant. I think that, I don't know, it's almost like the Capitals game is better when they play rope-a-dope. And meaning that when they go out and score first, they're usually, trying to fight really hard to get 2 points at the end of the game, like you saw the last couple games in Dallas and Chicago. So, the Chicago game was a little bit of a different game. I mean, they had no steam. They were exhausted mentally, physically. You could just tell that it was not there. The passing was off. and then Chicago just kind of hung around. They had some good goaltending in the third period that kept them in it, and they were able to score 3 unanswered goals for 2 points last night. So it just wasn't there. But I remember back, Grant, to when they lost back-to-back games earlier in the season, and just as they did that, they went on an 8-0-1 tear after that. So I don't think they're too concerned. Obviously, they don't want those mistakes to keep happening, but they'll get back on track here against Carolina.
How close is Ovechkin, do you think, Brent? And what's it going to mean when he does come back in terms of reshuffling the way this group is playing?
Well, I hate to speculate, but, him being on the trip is a very good sign, right? So him going to Dallas and Chicago with the boys, I would think that signifies that he's close. He wants to be on the ice, with his teammates or around his teammates right now. And that'll be absolutely huge to get him back, get him in the lineup. So I would love to say sometime before Christmas, but if I were just a little bit more cautious, I would say just after the Christmas break.
Johnny, I always love getting your insight on the goaltenders. Both of them have played very well. Logan Thompson's numbers are a little bit better at this point than Charlie Lindgren's, but each of them, 16 games for Thompson, 15 for Lindgren, have kind of delivered the goods this year. How would you grade those two and how they played?
I think they've both been excellent. And I'm with you. Yeah. I don't think numbers really signify everything in the game. I think they both went out there every single outing and given their team a chance to win. You know what you don't see is you don't see a guy that's struggling. Neither one of these guys are making it obvious that the Capitals have to do something absolutely fantastic night in, night out to get wins, right? They just hold the fort. They keep pucks out of the net. They do it consistently. They do it very good. And both of their styles, and we've talked about this before, is that both their styles are very different from one another, where you have LT is a very patient, deeper styled goaltender, kind of waits for the puck and then doesn't have to move very far laterally to make the save because he's so deep. And then you have that kind of explosive, reactionary, reflexive goaltender in Charlie Lindgren, who gets out on top of that pane, if not higher, and forces the shooter into tough predicaments.
Brent, really appreciate it, man. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Be good, bro.
You got it, buddy.
All right. Take care, guys.
Thanks, man. Hit that local 53 sounder, please. Our guy, JP Flame, to talk about the aforementioned local 53. JP, what kind of chance do you give him this weekend to beat Philly?
25% chance, maybe. I mean, they hung in there for a while in the first game. Division matchup. I heard you boys talking about it, but can we talk about Carry On?
Go for it. I want to see it.
Oh, the movie. I was like, baggage?
Last night.
Unless you're talking about carrying on a bag.
Which we did when we flew from Dulles or whatever. Yeah.
No, how was it?
It's pretty good. I mean, I watched it last night. Look, it's not Die Hard. It's kind of the Netflix version of Die Hard, the modern day
Silly
Die Hard. It's not bad at all.
How's my guy Jason Bateman in it?
I mean, he's Jason Bateman. Does he ever play somebody else? This is a slightly evil version of Jason Bateman.
So instead of saying,
Calm, cool, and
hey,
collected.
bud,
Hey, bud.
how's it going? He's like, hey, bud. How's it going, bud?
Hey, how would Jason Bateman talk to Dan Campbell? Grant, I got to tell you, I do like your Dan Campbell.
I think I have a silly Dan Campbell. I think he gets
it's
slept on
pretty
a little
good.
bit. Jason, you got to be Jason.
Oh, he
Bateman.
actually wanted me to do
Yeah,
it.
you're like,
I thought that was a
what is going on
hypothetical.
over
I didn't
there?
know what was
You
happening.
didn't know
All
what
right.
a carry-on was?
Yeah, I was like, I'm so bewildered.
You're struggling.
I am
there.
scuffling over here. I'm trying to figure it out. All right, here we go. Hey, Dan, what's up with all the injuries, pal?
We're going to go out there, man, and we're going to give everything we got, brother. I'm going to cry tears of joy. We're hosting the Super Bowl, man. City Council doesn't want it to be in D.C., though, brother. Charles Allen poured some cold water all over you, brother.
Yeah, the council's divided. Yeah.
Hey, I don't know if you just heard that. You probably are living your life. But we just had Charles Allen on from the D.C. City Council, and he is not sized for that land to be the land of a new stadium.
Of course he isn't. The saga's just going to go on and on and on until they actually start building somewhere. I'm not going to buy it.
Yeah, not even a press conference, not even a "we did it," like a mission accomplished banner. I'm not even doing that.
I need to see the foundation. I need to see beams before I believe it.
Well, you know that there's actually right now a developing situation where I don't know that it's in trouble or anything. I don't know how I would voice it, but Elon Musk started tweeting about this bill. He's Rick. Started saying that the government's paying for the land and a bunch of things that aren't, some of them are maybe true, but that certainly isn't a part of this anyway. And now there's some talk that this thing could fall apart anyway.
Not the RFK bill, like the big bill that it's like riding
the bill
on.
that it's attached to could fall apart, which would then kill the RFK bill.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me. I know that we had Mayor Bowser on the show this morning, and I think she was doing some sort of a victory lap. So it doesn't surprise me because, about a year ago, Ted did a victory lap on
right around a year ago
in Virginia.
Yep. 100%.
Pretty amazing. All right, back to the Commanders. 3 games to go. How many did they win?
I think that they'll likely win 2. Have to win at least 1, right?
If they don't win 1, they're cooked.
Yeah.
If they win 1, they could get in. But if they win 2, it's over. Where are they going for the playoffs?
Wow, man. Philly has been so hot. Detroit's depleted. I heard you guys mention Minnesota earlier. Everybody's sleeping on a 12-2 Minnesota Vikings team. But I'll just bet they're going to end up playing Philly a third time.
In terms of things that make you nervous, we did this a little bit earlier. JP, what's your thoughts on this as well? For me, it was Grant pointed out kicker, which is 100% right. It's been a carousel. To me, it's if they can't run the ball, which you never know when it's going to happen. Tennessee was a pretty good defense. They ran it all over them. They couldn't run it against New Orleans or Dallas, both bad run defenses. If you take that away, all of a sudden their offense becomes really pedestrian. That's the thing I'm worried about. What are you worried about here down the stretch that might prevent them from filling those expectations?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, if you look at what Jaden Daniels has done all season long, he's been terrific. However, he's been most effective when they've been able to move the chains on first and second down and they're in third and short situations. I don't think Jaden Daniels, at least right now, the way that this team is set up, is going to be successful if they drop him back 40, 45 times, has a bunch of third and long. So the running game is huge. Also protecting him. We saw him get sacked 8 times. So, yeah, I'm more looking at that offensive side of the ball. I'm encouraged that they didn't even throw at Lattimore last week. We're going to see over these next couple of games the Marshawn Lattimore effect. It should help the defense tremendously.
JP, thanks, buddy. We appreciate you.
Appreciate you, dude.
All right, boys. Watch Carry On.
I will. Tonight's the night for me. There you go. Your Beltway Blitz. We've got a big show announcement to make as soon as we return next. Make sure you're listening right around 4:30 for that. And then we'll get into what's going on with this DC land and whether or not a stadium is going to be built on.
Here we go.
This never ends. It just is the worst. Other teams, other cities, they just get stadiums. We got fighter jets being traded, and now we just won a battle. We thought it was the war, and there's another battle now.
Oh, yeah.
Grant and Danny on the Fan. Welcome back. Grant and Danny on the Fan, taking you up to 6:30. 5 o'clock, another chance for you to win Caps tickets. That is coming very, very quickly. Want to get you some news in just a few minutes on the RFK site. Land being turned over, hopefully, to DC, although it sounds like maybe there could be some moving parts that could make that more complicated than we thought here at the last minute. But that's certainly been the trend the last couple of days, was that everything was going to be okay, that DC would get its land back, and then that ideally, eventually the Commanders would build a stadium on that land. We just had Charles Allen on, who's a council member. He obviously doesn't like that plan.
Yeah, he Lee Corso does. He give a little not so fast, my friend, to that. I mean, he said, he's very candid about his feelings, whether you agree or not. That's not what we're doing. We're not doing a political debate. What we're saying is, here's the information. And his point was, I think people's views on the council run the gamut, the same way folks in DC's opinion probably runs the gamut. There's no consensus here, despite how out front the mayor is and has been on her desire to have the team play in DC.
It is time, though, as promised, to give you guys the big announcement that we've been teasing today. So without further ado, Darius, if you could find your drums over there, grab those drumsticks.
It's right here. That's the announcement. It's the longer one, yeah.
We are very lucky as a show to get to make this announcement on behalf of the entire station. You can join your favorite hosts from 106.7 The Fan for a special live show out and about in person. This is our newest, next, best yet live in-person show. The Sports Junkies, B. Mitch and Finley, myself, Danny, all going to shed the FCC restrictions we deal with, wrapped around us like a rope every single day.
Indeed. All the stuttering is gone. All the what word do I use? I can use whatever I want.
An uncensored discussion, Danny, of DC sports, behind the scenes stories, the time that we didn't work in radio and then how we got into radio, a preview of the Super Bowl matchup that'll be shortly thereafter. Danny, this is all going to be taking place 106.7 The Fan live.
We'll do it live.
January 31st, 2025. What better way to kick off the 2025 year as a station? We'll be at the Tally Ho Theater in Leesburg, Virginia.
By God.
Friday night, January 31st. Tickets available now. The Tally Ho Theater in Leesburg.
Several things. Number one, I love the Tally Ho Theater. We have done station events there in the past. I have done shows there in the past. It's first class. It's an awesome facility. It's a great venue to grab some foodstuffs, to grab beverages, and come hang out with your pals. So if you tolerate us and you really just want to see the Junkies, you'll get to. If you love Brian Mitchell, you get to see him too. We've done other shows in the past or over the years with varying formats, and I think now we've kind of got what we want to do, the way we want to put on a show, through some trials and errors and everything in between. So we've done stuff at like the State Theater, for example. We put on this big variety show, and it was a lot, but then we kind of went, you know what? The thing that actually people liked the best was just a bunch of us on stage chopping it up with a little bit of organization. So the way it's going to work is your pals that you're listening to right now, that's old G&D, we're going to kind of play point guard on this thing, right? We're going to be combo guards where we're getting everyone involved. We'll get our own offense as well, but setting people up, having some panel discussions. You don't know who the guests are going to be. Last year we had John Allen, for example.
I think that's what I'm most excited about is every year when we do this, especially out west in Leesburg, we're able to attract some decent guests to come through and surprise people. And normally we sprinkle some announcements as we get closer to it. But yeah, John Allen came out the last time we had one of these events. He was awesome. But I think we're going to have some special guests, it sounds like. But the Junkies, B. Mitch and Finley, me and you. Last time we did this, it was both stations.
Yes.
There were a lot of people on that stage.
Yeah, there were. It got a little busy.
It got a little busy. There was a lot going on. This is a 106.7 The Fan event.
Not HD2.
With 106.7 The Fan listeners.
See?
That's the way Dad did it.
Yeah.
Right? That's the way Grandpa did it. That's the way we're doing it.
It's going to be a little bit more show, a little bit less my drink tab. A little bit more fun and revelry and bits, a little bit less Chris Russell. You know what I'm saying? And we love those guys.
I hope Chris Russell.
We love Chris Russell. He's more than welcome.
Why don't you want Slashy there?
Because with that, then it becomes I got 17 other guys from the Deuce that are on, and now all of a sudden I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do with my hands. There's going to be some roasting.
You leave Chris Russell out of this.
I love Chris Russell.
Chris lives near there. He better come. Maybe we'll even call him up on stage for some skits and bits.
And that's totally fine as a guest.
One of the things I'm hoping to do is to incorporate the producers for a little,
we'll do a little producers.
fun on stage as well. Accentuate some of their talents, their skills. Get them up on stage to dish on the hosts a little bit.
Indeed. So I think we're doing this. I don't want to promise it and then not deliver, but at the most recent one in Bethesda, I roasted everybody. I don't just mean like I'm up on stage like I'm just shucking and jiving. I actually wrote roast jokes about the folks on the air. Thank you, sir. And everybody caught some shrapnel. I think we're doing that again.
I can confirm.
Yeah.
Shrapnel was caught.
Yes. Everybody got some. No one was immune, by the way. You and I both caught some. Not as much maybe as some others, but people caught some shrapnel.
I don't think you caught any. You didn't make any jokes about yourself.
I did. But
you did?
Yeah. They were. I whispered them to in my own head.
Okay.
What's up, Chuck? But yes, indeed. So, but it's going to be a blast. These things are always so much fun. It's so cool, both I think for us to see people like live and in color respond, because the here you're just you and me in a room on a microphone.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. It's hard to remember. Like sometimes folks are hearing us and
it's a great venue,
responding, whatever. The venue's awesome, and that live sort of energy is irreplaceable.
Yeah, we'll have hundreds of listeners, but it's the best parts of the show, really, where you get to shed any of the inhibitions and the nerves, and can't say that. Oh, can't tell that story. Oh, can't make that team mad. I mean, you just kind of go in.
Yeah, it's the nitty gritty. It's the down and dirty. It's all the behind the scenes stuff. It's super fun, man.
I actually
those events are great.
Best thing about announcing this today is that the holidays are coming.
Oh yeah.
So if you're listening and your boyfriend is a big listener to the station, or your husband loves the Junkies or B. Mitch and Finley, if you got a buddy that is a Mark, pretty cool Christmas gift. You tell them, hey, man, January 31st, Friday night, we're going out. We're getting drinks. We're watching the show. We're meeting all the guys. We're going to do a little, I believe, on the back end. When we're done, we're going to do a little meet and greet as well. So we'll all come off the stage and go kind of work our way around the crowd, which is going to be nice. But tickets are on sale right now. First come, first serve. Kind of get your seating at tallyhotheater.com. So you can go to tallyhotheater.com. It's called 1067 The Fan Live. And this is January 31st, Friday night, final Friday of January, out in Leesburg, which is my favorite place.
Virginia's doing great. Thank you, Governor.
Respectfully to you guys. I know there's like a green room situation. I'm sure I will be there eventually. I'm going to go to Tuscarora Mill and have a kick-ass dinner because I love Tuscarora Mill.
Okay.
And I don't get enough opportunities to be in Leesburg.
Okay.
That's what I'm going to be doing.
I'm thinking about the cheeseburgers there in the greater Leesburg area.
Melt.
I'm thinking about that.
You're looking for Melt.
But the restaurant that's right next door at Tally Ho is awesome too. I don't know what I'm going to do.
You just got me thinking about something.
Yeah.
We have a show before this. This is Friday, not Saturday.
Right.
I can't go to Tuscarora Mill.
You can't? Oh, we'll be on air.
I'll be on air.
Oh, yeah.
But what we could potentially do.
Go on.
If our guy, Ryan Clary, wants to hook his pals, is we could send Clary over to Melt, get Clary's lunch paid for, and get everyone some of the best cheeseburgers in America.
Here's my big butt. I think I can get that done.
My God.
I think I can get that done.
Ryan Clary, burger guy.
Burger guy.
2024 is about to end, buddy. How many burgers do you think you've had this calendar year?
I mean, I just had one the other day at Hard Times Cafe. I mean,
he did have one at Hard Times almost a month ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
The number from Rudy's bumps it up too, because I feel like you had 2 or 3 during the football season last year.
I had one.
Those
one.
Wouldn't count, I guess.
No, but
it's not on the 2024 ledger.
No, because I do believe I ended off week 18 with a burger there, so that would count as this year. So I would think I'm around like 3 to 4 burgers this year.
Burger guy.
Burger guy.
Who's more of a guy? Ryan Burger guy, Danny Dog guy.
Me, dog guy. I've had dogs my whole life and love dogs.
We walked into Christian's house. He had the greatest dog I've ever met or seen in my life. I didn't see Danny paying any attention to that dog.
Oh, no, you missed it. Danny was giving that dog some loving.
How about that?
I can't believe you weren't there for it, honestly. Yeah.
I can't.
Danny was petting the dog.
It never gets observed.
So much. He
really?
Loved the dog.
Was
yes.
the dog like leaning up against Danny,
Oh,
or
absolutely.
did he seek it out?
No, the dog came straight up to Danny. The first person the dog was seeking when we walked
recognized
to the door,
the dog guy
was
right
Danny
away
Rhea.
Dog guy.
and got some petting. And it was extensive. Yeah, long time dog guy.
January 31st. Where are you going to be? Leesburg, Virginia, 7 p.m. Start time. Tally Ho Theater, 1067 The Fan, live. Next on G&D, what is going on with this bill? And is the RFK land going to be returned to D.C. or not? Grant and Danny on the Fan. Show's brought to you by our friends, the law firm Kanduri and Murad. They'll help you update your last will and testament, set up a trust for you and your family. Go get a consultation with their estate planning attorneys by visiting kmlawyers.com and tell them we sent you. That's kmlawyers.com. If they know you came via the show, they will give you a discount. All signs all day long yesterday and all morning pointing toward everything being on the up and up and official that the land will be returned to Washington, D.C. We had the mayor saying as much on this radio station today with the junkies, but it sounds like there could be some tomfoolery afoot.
Yes, there's wavering. And again, this is going to brush up against politics. Hopefully everybody has their adult pants on, and just remember that we agree with you and we don't like the thing you don't like, and the thing that's good, we think so too.
You guys can do it. I promise you, you got this. You can hear us say a couple of names of people and talk about information and not get really angry about it. Let's do it together.
So here we go. All we're doing is delivering the message. No one's advocating for anything. Okay, that's enough qualifying. So apparently what's happening is you may know there's some turnover that's coming to Washington, D.C. in terms of one of the political parties has won some majority. And a lot of those folks are objecting to not the RFK bill specifically, although a couple of people are using it as an example, but it seems like this big giant what's called a continuing resolution, the big omnibus spending bill to fund the government, a lot of stuff, everything that gets attached to it, there are some things in there that now folks are saying, hey, wait a minute, this was supposed to just be to fund the government. There's a lot more stuff here that we didn't agree to, or we don't really want, and this is undermining the new group that's coming in or something. I don't know which way, however you think. I'm just saying this is what's happening. So the point is, it's not specifically like we can't let people have RFK, although a couple of people have used that as an example. It's we're objecting to this big picture thing, and all this RFK bill is a barnacle on the good ship continuing resolution.
Right.
And if good ship continuing resolution doesn't leave port, then there's no barnacle. The barnacle doesn't get to the destination. Our RFK thing's a big deal to us. You're here on a sports radio program. We care about whether there's stadium there or not, right?
That's a really important barnacle.
It's big to us. To the nation and to governance, it's the smallest of small potatoes. It's not even a molehill. It's like one mole thinking about moving. That's where we are.
But as an attempt to punch a hole in the ship, so to speak, people that care a lot about, the ship not getting where it's going are starting to focus on this particular barnacle to an extent.
It's being used as an example.
Some guy I don't know, and someone will tell me what he does, and you can save the time. I don't care. Okay. But he apparently hosts the largest show on X, okay? And he comes out, and he's got a bunch of details about the Commanders, I should just say the RFK Stadium part of this bill. And he tweets that out, to which Elon Musk, you guys have heard of him, he retweeted that. This guy already has 1 million followers. Elon Musk obviously has 208 million followers. So he tweets the information out that this guy tweeted, which was not accurate necessarily. And he said, this should not be funded by your tax dollars. The premise being that basically, the claim that incorrectly that the federal funding was going to be involved in this new stadium in D.C. The bill does not provide funding for a new stadium in D.C. It transfers jurisdiction from RFK, I should say, to D.C. That's what it does. It actually expressly prohibits the use of federal funding for a new stadium on page, I think, 253. But regardless, the point of the dude's story is, so this guy tweets something, and he's since changed the tweet. You can do that.
Yes.
You can edit your tweet. So he edited it out, the stuff that was wrong, but Elon Musk's tweet is still there, which is saying that, essentially this allegation of the federal funding for a stadium and the tax dollars and why are we doing this? And it's a whole thing. This is why I hate social media generally.
Okay.
The misinformation and just the idea of like someone retweeted a tweet. The tweet's since been changed. So I just responded and said, actually, this isn't right. The bill doesn't provide funding for a new stadium in D.C. It transfers jurisdiction. And you wouldn't believe this, but by responding to Elon Musk that I disagreed with his incorrect point about what this bill actually is, the Commander's RFK part of it, people think I'm taking some political side.
Yeah.
I'm not really doing that.
Well,
I don't care about your thing, or I don't care what side Elon Musk's on. Here's what I care about. The information on the stadium. It's like some guys like, do you really want to wade into these waters? Do I want to comment on the football team's stadium with the information that I have that I know is correct because I've corroborated it with the people that are involved in the process? Yeah, I'll do that if that's wading into waters, I suppose. I don't care about the rest of it. So you guys will have to, again, find a way to not be bothered.
Good luck on all fronts, both for you, Dwayne, waiting in, and the unbothered part of it. Yeah, so
I mean, but I think it's an important thing to point out that
100%.
If the claim is that there's federal funding to build a new stadium in D.C., that is incorrect. That's not what this is, and it actually expressly is the opposite of that as of right now. Now, I'm not saying that eventually there won't be funding in D.C. for the stadium. I don't know. But the claim that, and this is why the guy has since changed his tweet that was incorrect, that there was federal funding to build a stadium, and why is federally this going to be? That's not a thing. They're just giving the land back to the city. That's all.
Right. Which, again, is a hugely important distinction point. But, again, all the folks going crazy. So my buddy who works on Capitol Hill tipped me off to this as to kind of this was going on, saying, hey, FYI, this isn't as smooth sailing as we think. There's mounting criticism, mounting pulse. Everybody's finding something in this big bill to make their big political stand about, right? Whether it's a pay increase for somebody or some language here or there, or what funding is going here, there, and everywhere. And they're now doing a big song and dance. Who knows if that's all it is, or who knows if this is if we've reached Louise Lucas meme territory. I have no idea. Just, again, we're just talking about where the football team plays here on our little teeny tiny sports show. But yeah, it is an important distinction about what this little tiny part of this bill actually does. So the point is, I think the big takeaway, not necessarily the intricacies of the omnibus spending bill or whatever the hell the damn thing is. I don't care. The point is, as always, we don't even have eggs. We shouldn't be counting chickens. Until shovels have, not even just during the ground, have dug big enough holes and a structure has been erected and someone can walk inside the door and then they say Ticketmaster.com or Game Time app for tickets to the first game. No one should be celebrating. No one should be dunking. No one should be doing anything other than, if it happens, it's a miracle. That's my big takeaway.
By the way, Maryland. Just saying, Maryland.
Don't grade Sheehan me over here.
Terps. No, guy. Just build the damn thing in Maryland.
Oh, no.
Let's just build a stadium. Now. Right now. Build it. Go break ground. Westmore will meet you there in a Commander's jersey. Just put the shovel in and start building the damn thing. The council member we had on today is like, yeah, I won't vote for this, actually. Like, the next fight hasn't even started.
Oh, we haven't even gotten to that fight yet.
And he's already like rolling up his sleeves to start swinging.
There's another boss in this video game.
It just never ends.
It never ends.
It shouldn't be this hard. Let's blitz the East next. Grant and Danny on the Fan. 636-1067. Congrats. You're winning 2 tickets to see the Capitals Saturday, January 4th, as they take on the New York Rangers. For tickets and the complete Cap schedule, go to thefandc.com/contest, courtesy of the Washington Capitals. The show is live out and about on Friday. Our field trip series continuing. First one in a couple of weeks people can come out to, which is cool. We're going to be at one of my favorite sports bars in the area, the Crystal City Sports Pub over across the bridge in Virginia, right in Crystal City. It's like 3 levels. Awesome.
Place is really cool.
Great dive sports bar. I've been going there since I was a kid with my dad. We would go on our way home from XM Radio when I was just a little guy hosting kid sports shows. We would swing in on our way home. My dad would take me to the Crystal City Sports Pub. We would get burgers. One of my favorite places. Still go there all the time to get a breakfast sandwich. Great, great venue. Have you been there in a while?
It's been a minute. I mean, just, I was thinking about it actually when we were talking about it before the show, that I haven't been there in years. And it's before my kids were born is the last time where it was like I had free time and it was like me and a couple of dudes going to hang out. Like, it's been a long time.
It's one of my favorites. We will see you there again.
Pumped.
Live show 2 to 6:30 all day on Friday for the Grant and Danny Friday field trip series. Crystal City Sports Pub this week. So spread the word. Get your buddies to come out and kick it with us. Let's get our Blitz of the East started. And we start with the top team in the division and Tom Kelly, evenings on WIP to get things going. The Eagles just can't miss, Tom. I mean, they are rolling. For all of the consternation last week about Jalen Hurts' struggles, A.J. Brown not being as involved as he wanted, they threw the ball around and looked very good doing it this past week. Is everything harmonious now?
Yeah, everything seems good now, guys. And it's really incredible what this team's done, obviously, over the last 10 weeks. 2-2. You've won 10 straight. And I think last week was a really important moment for this team. I mean, after last year, we all saw how it collapsed at the end of the year. And there were those kind of fears that maybe that would happen again. But I think Nick Sirianni did a really good job keeping things together. Jalen Hurts played what I thought was his best game of the year. A.J. Brown was involved heavily in that game. So, yeah, everything seems to be behind them now, headed in the right direction moving forward.
So I don't think the defense gets enough credit for how good it is. I mean, a couple of years ago, they set like the modern sack record and fell off a little bit last year, but this defense has given up the fewest points in the NFC, to go with an offense that's, a bit up and down at times, certainly up this past week, but I don't think this defense is getting enough credit, Tom.
But you're absolutely right. I mean, the defense has been shocking. Like, we all kind of expected the offense would be good. You bring in Saquon, you got these receivers, but the defense has been incredible. And it all starts up front with Jalen Carter. I mean, to have this guy in his second year already being a game wrecker, Milton Williams, who plays next to him, probably the most underrated guy on the team. He's been incredible as well. And then, I mean, Zach Bond at linebacker. Linebacker's been an issue for the Eagles for like 20 years. Zach Bond's playing at an all-pro level. And on the back end, Quinyon Mitchell, a guy who's a rookie, has come in. He's basically a lockdown corner already. So it's really at all levels of the defense. Obviously, you bring in Vic Fangio. That's made an unbelievable difference for this team. And the defense is why there's so much confidence around this team right now. And it's the biggest surprise for sure with the Eagles this year.
They finally met their match in the running game. Saquon Barkley was held sub 70 yards on 19 attempts. He's closing in on 1,700 for the year. Has a really good chance to run for 2,000. But it seems like his opportunity to break the single season rushing record took a big hit with the tough game against the Steelers.
Yeah, and that's been a big conversation around here the last couple of weeks is Saquon is pursuit of the rushing record. That's probably not going to happen. But you look at a week like last week, I think even though Saquon was kind of shut down, it was so important to get this passing game going because you look at this offense, if you can add that element with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, get them going through the passing game, it's going to open so much more up for Saquon. So probably not going to get that rushing record. But last week, adding that passing dimension to the offense, in the long run, it could get Saquon back on track in a big way, and certainly in the playoffs.
Tom, I feel like Nick Sirianni is that one friend that we all have that it always has something chaotic going on. It's like he was going to meet you for dinner, but his car got impounded, or like he just had to go bail a cousin out of jail or something. Like, always has something crazy swirling around, but he also seems to thrive in the chaos. Again, one of these underrated things here, one of these subplots. 2-2, he's barking at a fan when they're barely beating somebody. All the drama of people going on radio or podcasts, whatever the hell it is, with the infighting. And as you already said, they ripped off 10 straight wins, and they're poised to be a Super Bowl contender. Pretty amazing job.
It's crazy, man. And Nick Sirianni, he doesn't get nearly enough credit. And early in the year, we were all critical of him. I mean, the stuff at the end of the Browns game where he's getting in fights with fans. He has a weird press conference after. It seemed like the pressure was getting to him, but the way he's responded, the way he's kept this thing together, and especially coming off of last year, that was the big question. Is Nick Sirianni the right guy for this job? And honestly, he's on the hot seat going into this year. If things didn't go well for the Eagles, he's probably going to get fired at the end of the season. Now, I mean, you look at the job he's done, you can't question how good of a coach this guy is. The big question around here, what does he do? He's not scheming up the offense. He's not scheming up the defense. Well, I mean, last week, I think that shows you what he does well is when the team's facing adversity, they got all this noise from the outside. He's really good at kind of insulating them, motivating them. And yeah, Nick's done an outstanding job. And honestly, besides Kevin O'Connell, I think if Kevin O'Connell wasn't doing the job he's doing in Minnesota this year, I think Nick would probably deserve Coach of the Year.
Tom, what about Jalen Hurts this season? I totally understand that when you're running the ball like they are, the quarterback's numbers are going to take a hit. But 2,800 yards, 18 touchdowns and 5 picks. And we're happy with Jaden Daniels. We're giddy with his rookie season, but that's kind of like what Jaden's done. I mean, this is a $50 million guy. When you watch him, there's plenty of weeks where he's just okay. I wasn't really impressed when they played Washington as an example in a big primetime game. Like, where are you at on the season he's had?
Yeah, it's weird because you're right. The Washington game, he was really bad in the first half of that game, but bounced back in the second. I think that's the way Jalen's kind of viewed around here. Is he's not perfect, but he's made the plays when he needs to make them. Typically, he'll do that, but that's why last week was so important because we look at it, and obviously you have Saquon, but you need a functional passing game. And his biggest issue this year is he holds on to the ball too long. Usually that results in a sack or a throwaway. He was getting the ball out a lot quicker last week, and he doesn't need to be great with this offense. With this talent, this offensive line, he just needs to be proficient. And I think we saw it 2 years ago. Like, Jalen's good enough, but he needs to play the way he played against the Steelers more often for sure.
Tom, Eagles are favored this weekend against Washington. They should be, even though they're on the road. What do you see in this one? Just preview that matchup for us from a Philly perspective.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to doubt the Eagles at this point. And I'm going to pick the Eagles to win this game. I think they win this game by like a touchdown. I think it's close. I still like the Commanders, think they're going to be a wild card team. But the Eagles, obviously, they can go down there, clinch the division this weekend. They still have their sights set on the 1 seed, need some help for that to happen, need Detroit loss and a Minnesota loss. But in the end, I think the Eagles will be able to get to the high 20s. And I'm not sure Washington's going to be able to score that much against this Eagles defense.
Yeah, we've been talking all week about some of the issues that make us nervous about Washington, some of the injuries they've got, the kicking situation. Where are your flaws where you go, this team's susceptible because of what?
Yeah, it's really tough to point one out at this point, and that's why it probably would have been the passing game going into last week, is they haven't shown the ability to throw the ball consistently. Last week did a lot to ease our fears here in Philadelphia, but the kicking game is an interesting one. I mean, Jake Elliott for the Eagles has been one of the best kickers of in the league over the last 7-8 years. He's really struggled. I mean, he's 0 for 5 from field goals, over 50-plus yards this year. The track record makes you feel like he'll be all right, but that's a concern at this point, is the special teams, the kicking game. This is probably the worst year Jake Elliott's had. So, I mean, it's nitpicking a little bit, but if you had to point to one thing, that's probably the biggest concern right now.
Tom, thank you, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, man, we'll talk soon. Hit that Cowboy sounder super quick, Darius. Oh, Grant and I will handle this. Grant, all of a sudden, 3 out of 4 wins for Dallas. Played a 1-score game against Cincinnati on Monday Night Football not too long ago. They're playing their best ball too little, too late.
I think this has been Mike McCarthy's best coaching job. I said this yesterday. It's kind of a funny thing to say out loud. Nobody likes Mike McCarthy, and he's like the dude everyone makes fun of. But 3-1 with wins against Washington, the New York Giants, and Carolina, nothing overly impressive. But the Cowboys were underdogs in a couple of those games. They could have easily lost those. They almost beat the Cincinnati Bengals in that stretch. Would have been 4 in a row. They're doing it with Cooper Rush. The thing that I've been most impressed by with the Cowboys, they've actually got a running game. Beginning of the year, Danny, they could not run the football Rico Dowdle the last several weeks has become a franchise running back, it would appear. 149 yards this past week, 6 yards per carry on 25 attempts. Hard earned, like the long of 12. It wasn't like he ripped one off for 50, but they have really got their ground game going. And McCarthy deserves a lot of credit for this offense still putting up numbers without Dak Prescott and with some of the injuries to their offensive line.
It's such a bizarre season. They have one win at home. They beat the Giants 27-20, and they have nothing but losses other than that on their home field. All their wins other than that have come on the road, which is pretty wild. Just a bizarre season for Dallas. Beat up, and now, again, kind of playing their best football. McCarthy basically making a case for his job. They end up last 3 games of the season, Tampa, Philly, and Washington. So that could come crashing to a halt a little bit, but still, he deserves some credit to your point.
Yeah, they win a couple of those playing spoiler. I think he keeps his job pretty easily. But, yeah, very much up in the air to see his job status. I think he will stay, though. I'll bet you Jerry gives him another shot with Dak.
And Jerry loves keeping guys for longer than you think. Everyone thinks of Jerry as an impatient firer of people. Again, Jason Garrett got a decade, basically. I think they keep McCarthy.
I also don't know, how much better are you doing? Everyone assumes, like they said, oh, Belichick wants that job. He's in North Carolina. Vrabel will want that job. Sure, he might be able to do a little better than that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure McCarthy is worse than whoever they'd be bringing in to deal with Jerry Jones at this point, when it's been years since he's proven that his player evaluation can get them where they need to go. Let's keep the Blitz of the East moving and go to the basement of the division. The poor Giants. What a disaster covering that team must be at this point. It's just a mess. Let's get to the bottom of the Giants with Chris Bisignato, Giants insider. So you tell us. I mean, it's a revolving door. It's quarterback. There are still questions about Daboll. It sounds like Shane is safe. Like, what are the storylines you cover week in and week out when it's been months since they've won?
Well, basically the storyline now is who's staying, who's going. Is anybody going? Is anybody staying? That's what it's basically the season. You know, as you guys know, Drew Lock is going to look like he's going to be playing. So we're back to him. Defense is decimated with injuries. It's nothing good here, fellas. I can tell you that, man. There's nothing good here. Basically, the storyline the last 3 weeks is, do they get the number 1 pick in the draft? And is Shane and Daboll going to be around to select that number 1 pick? That's what the storyline is now.
So, Chris, my neighbor, a buddy of mine, is a lifelong Giants fan, lives in the D.C. area in my neighborhood. And we were just chopping it up last night, and actually this morning I saw him too. And his point was he's now rooting not only against the Giants for that number 1 pick, et cetera, but he's also, for example, rooting for Saquon Barkley to do special things. Not because, he misses him and wishes him well, some sort of altruistic deal, but he wants every quote-unquote wrong decision the Giants made to where no one can hide. They want everything to blow up in their face. So he hopes like Daniel Jones gets 3 starts and throws for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns a game, et cetera. He wants no one to be able to hide behind any kind of cover. How common do you think that is among Giants fans?
Oh, it's pretty common.
Yeah.
So I gather your buddy doesn't want Joe Shane and Daboll back.
He is not a Shane and Daboll fan. He would not put that bumper sticker on his car. No.
Yeah, I kind of got that feeling. Yeah, that's the feeling among the Giants fans too, is that they want change. They want everybody gone. And they definitely, they want, if you're going to make changes, both of them. Don't be, there's some rumors around here about maybe Mara's thinking about keeping Joe Shane, but moving on from Daboll, which to me would be a disaster. You think you'll learn from the previous mistakes, but this is the Giants, right? So, but yeah, look, that's the sentiment of the fan base. And the way this season's going, fellas, I mean, I can see Saquon, obviously the Eagles look like they're going to need that last game for the number 1 seed. I can see Saquon getting close to that record. Or maybe breaking it that last game. Although I know he only had 65, it kind of slowed him down last week. But yeah, the fans are thinking the same thing. And the fans, you know what the fans want too? I can tell you this: they want Michael Penix to throw for 300 yards Sunday to say, "See, you passed on this guy."
9 straight losses as they play Atlanta and Penix, who's debuting. And what do you expect to see on Sunday in that game?
Oh, the same old. Not score many points. I think Penix will throw some for some yards. Their secondary's down to really nobody. I mean, all fairness, they're missing so many players, and we'll see if their starting corners are playing this week. Even their backups are hurt on the injury list this week. So I expect Atlanta. They're in the playoff hunt. They're right there. They were a game behind Tampa. They own the tiebreaker. They're fighting for wild cards and all that. So this is like a playoff game to them. And obviously they see something in Penix that he's ready. What better test right out of the gate for him to play against the Giants? Again, a team that's not very good defensively. So I expect a pretty angry Falcon team to come out and play like a must-win team. And they're not happy with their performance against the Raiders last week, and they'll probably take it out on the Giants Sunday.
Chris, thank you as always, buddy. Appreciate the time.
You got it, fellas. Talk soon.
There is your blitz of the division on Grant and Danny. What is more likely as an outcome to the Commanders season? That they don't make the playoffs or that they actually go on to win a playoff game? We'll get into that next on The Fan.
There's a lengthy protocol in the return to make sure, we don't miss a step along the way. For us, you've heard us say protecting the team. That's the player too. So we did that with Marshawn, and he's really worked hard, to get ready into this space. So we'll just kind of take it practice as we're going, but he'll be back, in with the team today and going through it.
That's Dan Quinn on John Allen. 21-day window for him to return has been opened. He was on the practice field today, and he's going to play again this season.
That's awesome.
Maybe against the Falcons next weekend. Pretty amazing. Welcome back, Grant and Danny on the Fan. The show will be live on Friday in 2 days from the Crystal City Sports Pub. Friday field trip series continuing. I want you guys to spread the word for us, get a nice turnout. We would love to have a nice party going into this Eagles game. It's arguably the biggest game of the year. They win, and it's all over. I mean, they're going to be sitting pretty going into the final weeks of the season here with 2 games to go. So, huge one for Washington. Nice little chance for a pep rally over at the Crystal City Sports Pub. 2 to 6:30 live show on Friday. Speaking of live shows, we made a big announcement. The 106.7 The Fan live event at Tally Ho Theater. Tickets went on sale today. We just broke the news on the show that we are doing this event. It's January 31st, which is a Friday night next month, about 6 weeks away, and it's going to be at 7 p.m. The Junkies, B. Mitch and Finley, myself, Danny, all of our producers, everybody up on stage, uncensored, skits and bits, all kinds of fun. I got a tweet here from David who said, I live 376 miles away. I have a 2-year-old and a 2-month-old. I have not discussed this with my wife, but Al Michaels style, here we go.
Here we go.
And then it's a picture
He's got his ticket
saying congratulations with his front row seats that he's ordered. You can go to tallyhotheater.com to get your tickets now.
Tally Ho Theater rules. I love being there. They take great care of folks. They know how to put on a show. They're awesome. The venue is great. These shows in the past have been a blast. We've done one. We did one there at Tally Ho a few years ago. We've done one at
that was a
Theater.
lot of years ago.
It was
now.
a long time.
That was such a good venue for this.
I'm telling you, it may be the perfect venue for this, honestly. The way the sound carries, the way it's big but also intimate.
Last time we had a real issue just because on the stage you couldn't hear like down the row.
Yep.
So Jason Bishop was talking, 20 feet away to the right, and we're both on stage, but I have no idea what he just said. This venue is perfect for the interaction and the conversation.
All of it.
And we're going to do DC sports and radio history and all kinds of stuff. So there's a lot of ground to cover, and we need to be able to hear each other.
Yes.
And you can hear yourself and the person next to you.
You can hear yourself
at the Tally Ho Theater,
which is very nice. But yeah, the venue rules. These shows are a blast. So if you care about us at all, you hate us, whatever, come on out, buy a ticket. It's awesome, man. It's you can get them now in time for Christmas. You got a fan in your family? Go ahead.
I think that's the play. Get your butt. Like, to me, if I listen to the station every day and my buddy does too, that's your Christmas present.
Merry Christmas.
We're going. But I'm getting some people DMing me on Instagram at Grant H. Paulson and all over the place going, hey, I got my tickets. So these normally go very, very fast,
yes,
which is awesome. Probably doesn't have a lot to do with us, but we're a small part of it.
Yeah, the Junks
cool.
will be there.
The Junkies will be there. You guys can meet the Junkies. But get your tickets now at the Tally Ho Theater site, tallyhotheater.com. All right, Linnell actually posed this question to me yesterday in the bullpen, and I thought it was phenomenal. I said, you know what? I'm going to steal that. We are going to do that as a radio topic. So credit to Linnell for this.
Picked up the phone and ran with it.
He asked, he said, GP, do you think the Commanders are more likely to win a playoff game or to not make the playoffs at all? This was yesterday, post week 15. So what you're asking me basically is, do I think they are more likely to go 2-1 down the stretch and then find a way to beat Philly or Detroit or Minnesota, I guess, possibly, as the 2 seed in the conference? Or do I think it's more likely that they go 1-2 and miss out on the playoffs? Which the 1-2 to me would probably be that you beat Dallas in week 18. And my answer was, unfortunately, I think they're more likely to miss the playoffs than to win a playoff game. Because while I think they lose to Philly, and I'm going to pick them to beat the Falcons in Michael Penix's second career start, and I'm going to pick them to beat the Cowboys, and that's 2-1 in the playoffs. I would tell you, Danny, I think it's more likely they make the playoffs than miss the playoffs. That's not what he's asking.
That's not the question.
He's asking, are they more likely to win a playoff game? Haven't done that since 2005. That means you've got to now go on the road in a playoff environment and win in Detroit, Philly, or Minnesota, or that they lose a home game to a pretty good Atlanta team that can run the football. I think that's probably more likely, the way I'm working everything out in my head.
Yeah, two separate silos here. The most likely scenario, the odds say that, the percentages say that, the math people say that, the analytics folks say that, the schedule says that, their place in the standings says that, they are going to the postseason. But again, put that aside for a second. We're asking of the extremes, what's more likely? Win a playoff game or miss it entirely? And unfortunately, I agree with you. I don't think so. Again, it's not to say there's no possibility they can win a playoff game, because who knows? You get Jalen Hurts gets food poisoning the day of the game, or he can't go, or AJ Brown tweaks something and he can't go. Whatever. I mean, you have no idea. It's why you show up and play. You see what happens. There have been a million upsets. There'll be a million more. But in terms of likelihood, a team that hasn't played their best football since really October, you're looking at of their last 5 or 6 games. This is not the same team that was running roughshod over people to get to 7-2. Okay, they haven't played as well. That was bound to happen, by the way. But this is the sample we're talking about. 2 of their last 3 games, they have struggled against bad defenses to move the football consistently and put up points. They lost one, could have lost both. So to me, an underachieving finish, given the start, is far more likely, unfortunately, than they go on the road and beat one of the 2 teams with the best record in the NFC.
I want to pose this question to listeners and open up the phones on this at 800-636-1067, because we're in agreement. So I want to see if there are people that disagree with us out there. 800-636-1067. What do you think is more likely? The Commanders miss the playoffs, which probably means 10-7 and things don't go their way via tiebreaker, so they're 1-2 in their next 3, or that they win a playoff game. And I keep saying Lions or Eagles, but the Vikings have entered the chat here. I mean, they have the same record after the Detroit loss this weekend. All 3 teams are 12-2. Detroit, Philly, and Minnesota. So it's not just the Lions or the Eagles, like I've been saying for weeks. It could actually be the Vikings, I suppose, as the number 2 seed, because Detroit could fall to the 5 seed at that point as the top wild card, and Philly would be the 1 seed with the bye. So there's actually 3 potential destinations. All right, so if we're both in agreement, though, Danny, that they're more likely to miss the playoffs than to win a playoff game, then we need to move the needle down even a little further, which is to say, let's even it out. Would you be more surprised by Washington losing all 3 games left on their schedule, or winning a playoff game?
Winning a playoff game would be more surprising to me.
So you think it's more likely they lose out?
Yeah.
Really?
Than win a playoff game.
And go 9-8 and lose to an awful Cowboys team in week 8. Well, they haven't played awful, but at that point, it's week 18 of a lost year with nothing to play for.
Yeah, I've seen that movie before, right? A team with everything on the line at the end of the season against a group with nothing to do. And I've already seen this sample 1 against Dallas a few weeks ago.
You've also seen the win and in game against Dallas.
Sure.
More recently.
Yeah, I have seen that. Yeah, to me, like the fact that they already lost and played terribly, their worst game of the year against Dallas, I got no confidence there that all of a sudden it'll just be different just because.
And you're worried about the Atlanta game?
I'm worried about every game now. I mean, they lost their you just show up and roll the football out and they'll win privilege for me.
Well,
with their last few weeks.
Yeah, for people that hear this, they go, "Oh, come on, guys, where's your confidence?" Or "Oh, you guys are so negative." To that, I would say they haven't beaten anybody good yet. Now, Philly could change that if they go to Philly. Excuse me, if they go at home and beat Philly, go out and beat Philly this weekend, and play the game similar to what they did in Philly when they went to the Link and had a 3-quarter gem and then the 4th quarter meltdown, and finish it and beat the Eagles, then they're going to get into the playoffs and they have the signature win and whatever. But in the meantime, not only do they only have one impressive outing, really dating back to October 20th when they blew the Panthers out, they haven't beaten a good team. That their best win is a 42-14 shellacking of 7-7 Arizona,
who was terrible when they played them. Arizona's played better since. Yeah, I mean, it's all part of the resume. Now, again, had they beaten the brakes off of Dallas or New Orleans, and you now have an outlier, which is, say, the Dallas game, or you have an outlier, which is, say, the New Orleans game. I'd feel differently. But given the extra rest they had both times, two of their, meh, at best kind of games have come the most recently after extra time to prepare. Hard for me to feel like you're the same juggernaut that, as you alluded to, was beating the brakes off of teams that you're better than. I think Washington has clearly a better resume than Atlanta. That's not up for debate. That's not the question. But the question is, it's a trust factor for me. Do you 100% trust that a team that has demonstrated weaknesses in a number of areas is just going to play that way against this Washington group that has struggled to run the football against teams that can't stop the run? I don't know. I mean, on paper, Washington's better, but that's not the question.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a 9-5 versus an 8-6 game. It's toss-up.
Yeah,
you're within a game at that point, obviously. So I will disagree with you on the second hypothetical or the second question, which was, is it more likely that they lose out or win a playoff game? I think it's way is strong, but it's more likely that they win a playoff game, that they go beat Minnesota. Because while the Vikings are 12-2, Sam Darnold is their quarterback. And he has played some bad football games, and he's turned the ball over. That is a game, if you told me they went to Minnesota in the playoffs, Jaden Daniels was the best player on the field. It's indoors. It's not like you're playing in the snow and the ice cold conditions, right? You're going. It's room temperature. Daniels balls out. Terry goes for a bill. You turn Sam Darnold over a couple times, and it's a game that comes down to the wire, and you beat the Vikings. I would say that's more likely than that you lost 3 straight. Because now I've got to assume that you lose a toss-up to Atlanta, that you lose a game you should win against Dallas. Just beating a Vikings team that'll probably be favored over you by 5.5 points is mathematically a lot, I would say, easier. And the math is on my side on that, I think. But the more interesting question really is, to me, do you think it's more likely they don't make the playoffs at all, or that they win a playoff game? We're going to get the calls on this coming in next. 800-636-1067 if you want to join us on Grant and Danny here on The Fan. Back to Grant and Danny on the Fan. Are the Commanders more likely to end their playoff victory drought at 19 years? Their last playoff win was in 05 in Tampa. Or to miss the playoffs altogether? What do you think's more likely? They win a playoff game or they miss the postseason, which probably means going 1-2 in their final 3. So, Danny, you and I agreed it's more likely they miss the playoffs. You actually think it's more likely that they go 0-3 in the final 3 than they win a playoff game.
Again, I'm not picking that, but we're talking about two extreme scenarios, right? What I think is more likely. And to me, I don't want to say I'm already chalking it up, but I feel like this Philadelphia game, they're underdogs decidedly, and that's probably, if we're looking at it this way, a loss. It's now, do you trust them to handle business for a group that's never done this before? I'm talking about a bunch of young players, first year, as they're kind of coming together, jettisoning the old. With all the tape out on you and your scheme and your design to play against a neophyte quarterback and a group that's kind of all of a sudden rallied and starting to play better that already beat you once a couple of weeks ago in Atlanta and Dallas, respectively. So again, I'm not picking this to happen. I'm not predicting this is happening. But if you're asking me what's more likely, Washington going on the road in the postseason against either team or actually any of the 3 teams they might end up playing who's decidedly better than they are. Resume says that. The way they're playing right now says that. Into an unbelievably difficult environment, pulling off a win, I don't think that's very likely. So to me, the thing that's slightly more likely, I suppose, would be them missing the postseason entirely by going 0-3 down the stretch.
And I don't see that. They lost 3 games in a row once this year. They've lost 5 games all year. They're 9-5. So just on paper to say the 9-5 team either wins a playoff game as an 11-win team or loses 3 in a row, I'll side with the more positive of those 2 outcomes. I agree with you they lose to the Eagles, but I'm not convinced. I actually have a sneaky feeling they're going to make this a real game this weekend. I think they could absolutely beat Philly. I have the feeling I had about the Bengals game, which I didn't pick them to beat the Bengals. I don't think I'll have the guts to pick them to beat the Eagles, but I absolutely think it's going to come down to the wire, and I think they're going to play this game way closer than everyone else does. Let's say they lose to the Eagles. I got them beating Atlanta, beating Dallas. But there's one other possibility here that we haven't talked about. I kept saying that to win a playoff game, it means, like you just said, that they've got to go win in Minnesota, in Detroit, or in Philly. Actually, there's another path, which would be if they beat the Eagles. You and I both think they can win out after that with the Cowboys and the Falcons.
Yep.
They're a 12-win team, and they actually are a 6 seed. At that point, with 12 wins, they get to the 6 seed, let's say, and they get to play at a very winnable opponent in the playoffs. For the sake of the conversation, let's say it's Tampa Bay, where they lost in week 1. But you said earlier, and I agree with you, Tampa Bay and Washington are kind of a similar team going into the playoffs.
Yeah, different. Everything's different now than it was months ago.
So now all of a sudden, let me ask you this question.
Mm-hmm.
If I was to ask you what is more likely, that they beat Tampa Bay or that they lose out, let's say, you'd probably say that they beat Tampa Bay.
Yes.
Now, you got to do some hard work to get there, to get to the 6 seed, to leapfrog Green Bay at that point, to catch somebody. But it's not that they have to go to and win on the road one of the elite 12-win teams right now. They could still get the 6 seed and play the Rams or the Bucks.
That's pretty much, they'd have to go 3-0 and get some help, right?
Yeah, which the only difference between what we're saying and that is beating the Eagles, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they beat the Eagles and you go into the Falcons game with all the momentum against a quarterback in his second game, of course you can lose that game. But you just said that, they're favorites for, in the case of the Eagles this week, that they're favorites for a reason. And, well, Washington will be favorites for a reason against Atlanta, right? So there is a path to 3 straight wins and the 6 seed. And now all of a sudden, winning a playoff game in Tampa, whole lot different than trying to go to the Link or to Ford Field or to the best stadium probably in America, U.S. Bank Stadium in Minnesota. Let's go to Alex in Mechanicsville on Grant and Danny. What is more likely? The Commanders miss the playoffs altogether or they win a playoff game?
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call.
Hey, man.
I think it's a little bit more likely that they make the playoffs and win a playoff game. I think to get to the playoffs, there's one route that you guys haven't really talked about. If they beat Atlanta, they're in the playoffs. It doesn't matter if they lose to Dallas and Philly. All they have to do is beat Atlanta, and they're in the playoffs. And so to win that one particular game, get to the playoffs, You've already laid out the scenario where they could play one of the not three best teams. Grant broke down how they could beat Minnesota, possibly. Detroit is falling apart and getting injured right and left. And if they lose to Philly, I think it's really very rare for a team to beat another team 3 times in one season. I couldn't imagine Philly beating Washington 3 times in the same season. So I think all that combined, it's a little bit more likely that they get in and actually win a game in the playoffs.
Appreciate you, buddy. Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I was trying to find the stats while he was talking on that. It's one of those axioms that everybody says. It's hard to beat a team 3 times. I actually don't know if the data supports that or not. I just sort of feel that way. But if you're better than a team and you beat them a couple of times, maybe it could beat them a third time. I don't know, but I'm sure there are examples on in both directions. But his point about Atlanta, I think, is a really good one, right? It basically comes down to that game, and there's still some other things that have to happen. I think I was trying to find all the playoff scenarios too, but that pretty much stakes a dagger through Atlanta's heart and gives you a really, really good chance, I think, with one other factor in there. If you beat Atlanta, you're 90-some% good to go.
Yeah, and I think the math there that he's talking about is if Seattle were to go 3-0, they would overtake the Rams and win the division. So a 2-1 Rams team would, at that point, be even in record with Washington, and Washington would have the tiebreaker over the Rams. Same thing with Seattle the other way. So he's saying the NFC West team probably can't catch you. I've not seen that definitively, that all they'll have to do is beat the Falcons. But the Atlanta game is obviously the biggest one.
Yeah, so it's the scenario is Washington wins and Atlanta loses or ties, and the Rams lose or tie. So
for this week, they can't. That's how they clinch this week. He's saying no matter what happens this week and in Week 18, if they beat the Falcons, they're automatically a playoff team.
So yeah, but the point is, you give Atlanta their loss if you end up beating them, then they can't catch you anymore, right? Like doesn't matter where Atlanta gets that loss. If it ends up being to Washington specifically, now you've gained that extra layer.
But is that standalone? Like what, the Rams and the Seahawks then don't matter at all?
Yeah, see, that's what I don't think that's correct. I think you need one other extra factor. It's basically if the Rams lose at some point, in addition to that happening.
And I'm trying to do the math in my head here a little bit because Seattle plays the Rams still, like both of those teams can't go 3-0. So Seattle's 8-6. Best case scenario for them, they could win all 3 and be 11-6. But if they do that, it means they beat the Rams, who are now 10-7, and they win the division. Same with the Rams. If they go 3-0 and they beat Seattle, they're 11-6 and they win the division. So in other words, one of those teams has to be 10-7, and I don't see a path to either of those teams having a better conference record than Washington at that point. The best the Rams can do in the NFC, which is the tiebreaker, is 7-5 in their conference games. The best Seattle could do in their conference games would be 7-5. Washington still plays Atlanta, Philly, and Dallas. If they were to only win one of those 2 games and go 1-2 the rest of the way in the conference, if you're tracking with me, they would be 7-5. So maybe that's how. It is now the tiebreaker is even, and you go to the next round, and they're probably not eliminated just yet. So might be slightly overstated to say all they've got to do is beat the Falcons. 800-636-1067 is the number on Grant and Danny. More likely, Commanders miss out on the playoffs or win a playoff game. You got to put money down on one of those 2 things right now. Which are you choosing? Plus, the big news of the day out in Ashburn, a reinforcement we thought was out for the year, who isn't. We're Grant and Danny. If you missed DC Council member Charles Allen on the show earlier today, go back and podcast that interview at thefandc.com or grantanddanny.com/audio.
I want to let you guys know that as Washington continues to build the foundation of success on and off the field this season, it's time for you to plan for your future as well. As an exclusive sponsor of our show, the law firm of Condori and Morad can help you update your last will and testament or set up a revocable trust for you and your family. Schedule a free consultation with their estate planning attorneys today by visiting kmlawyers.com. Be sure to tell them the Grant and Danny sent you. That's kmlawyers.com. And Jeeps, while you're clearing your throat there with the little cough that you're fighting, you sleep on that. Every time I hear that song by Flock of Seagulls, I think of one of the great commercials for a video game in history, Grand Theft Auto Vice City. Just that dude rolling around like kind of their version of Miami, Scarface style, and that like song playing as kind of a montage over game footage. Huge release, badass and awesome.
Do you know how many hours I spent playing Grand Theft Auto Vice City? One of my all-time most logged games. Now, Madden is the 1 seed for sure. If I could look at the hours, it would be, I'd feel bad about it. I'd be a bountiful amount. Number 2 could be, well, let's say non-sports games. Because I would, I bet I could just go down the list of like, well, baseball, then basketball. But if you take sports games out of the equation, it's either Grand Theft Auto Vice City or 007. Like
little GoldenEye piece?
GoldenEye.
Yeah, you and the boys in the dorm room.
So many. That was way before, dude. I was in middle school.
Oh,
when
were
that
you?
game
Okay.
Came out. I was at home. It was me and my brothers or friends coming over after school. That I played that game so much. What do you think is in your top of your list?
Oh, for hours spent? Probably Morrowind. That series of all the Elder Scrolls is in there. Oblivion is in there. Skyrim could certainly be in there. Fallout is in there.
What's Gallahorn?
That's from Destiny.
Is that no? That's nothing.
No, well,
That's
it's not
not up
nothing. But no, in terms of time spent, no, that's not even close. We're talking about hundreds of hours, dude.
What about Zelda?
Yeah, Zelda's that's an all timer. Which Zelda are you talking about? You talking about Ocarina? You're talking about OG.
Frankly, I'm not talking about anything.
You're talking about Ocarina of Time?
I don't think.
N64?
I don't know if I am.
Hey, listen. You're talking about that one?
007. Grand Theft Auto. Do you remember Gran Turismo?
Of course I do.
That might be high on my list too. Was that Gran Turismo Need for Speed? Am I making that up?
You may be conflating.
Two different games. Two different franchises.
Okay, well, I definitely played both of them.
They're both you're driving cars
Turismo
fast.
might be third. But yeah, I mean it's Madden. And then 2 would be some type of baseball. Probably like Ken Griffey Jr. baseball. Yeah.
MLB The Show.
Absolutely. Couple things I wanted to hit before we get back to the phones here. Reminder, tomorrow, show is going to be out and about. I should say Friday. Show is out and about on Friday, 2 to 6:30. We're at the Crystal City Sports Pub. Going to be a lot of fun. We're going to get ready for the Eagles game. Huge game for Washington. That's number 1. Number 2, we just made the big announcement that we do have a live event at Tally Ho Theater. It is the entire staff from 106.7 or 106.7 The Fan Live. This is 6 weeks out, January 31st. Great Christmas present, though. Tickets just went on sale today, so the good seats are still available. You can go to tallyhotheater.com.
These events in the past have been awesome. This will be super fun. We have learned what we like to do the best, and we've learned what we don't like to do the best. That was a weird turn of phrase. The point is, we're going to do the good stuff for you.
We have learned what we like to do the best, but also what we don't like to do.
Yeah, that made perfect sense in my brain, and then I said it out loud. I'm like, well, more stuff like that at the live show. Where I say things that don't make sense. No, it'll be a blast, dude. These things are so much fun. The energy is great. It's behind the scenes. It's unedited, uncensored. So, you know, like how all the time you hear like me going, sitting there searching for a word. It's because I can't say the word I want to say because there are rules. We get in trouble for saying them. We don't get in trouble for saying it there.
Yes.
It's uncensored. There's no filter, and it's a blast.
You just say what you want to say.
You just say it.
It's very nice. I like it better that way. Lastly, during the break, very meticulously went through all of the possibilities in the wild card picture. The caller was completely correct because Seattle can get to the same record in the conference as Washington to win a tiebreaker with Washington, but to do it, they will have to overtake the Rams to win the division, meaning they're no longer a factor to get to that conference record. The Rams can't tiebreaker Washington. So because those two teams still play, they can't both catch Washington. The Commanders, with a win over the Falcons, even if they lose 2 of their games, would get in at 1 and 2. But only if the one is against Atlanta, if that makes sense. So that's where we are.
There you have it. Yeah.
At 10 and 7 with a 1 and 2 record and a second loss to a bad Cowboys team, wouldn't feel very good. Doesn't change anything about the discussion we're having right now, but just
cleaning that up a little bit. Yeah.
File that to the side.
Mm-hmm.
But the convo at hand right now is, what is more likely? They miss the playoffs or they win a playoff game. You and I both think it is actually more likely that they don't make the playoffs, right?
Mm-hmm.
But where we disagree is, I think it's way more likely that they win a playoff game than that they lose out, which you're saying you think if right now you had to bet on one of those two things happening, going 0-3 down the stretch as a 9-5 team, it's only had one losing streak really all season. You're saying, yeah, 3-game skid at the end of the year. I could see that before. I could see them beating, let's say, Tampa Bay in the playoffs if they went 3-0, or Detroit, Philly, or Minnesota if they're on the road after going 2-1.
Right. Now I want to clarify. I'm not picking that to happen. I'm not predicting that's going to happen, but we're talking about one of two extreme scenarios. Yeah. To me, I think playing Tampa, I think is far-fetched. It required all sorts of dominoes to fall. To me, you're the 7 seed as cannon fodder for somebody that ends up finishing second. And you're basically boiling it down to what's more likely. They go on the road to beat Philadelphia/Detroit, or they flub one against Atlanta. That's kind of where I'm at. To me, that's a slightly more likely scenario. Again, I'm not predicting it, but they've kind of lost their implicit trust for me. Playing an inferior opponent, they'll just win. I don't think that anymore.
You give them very little chance to beat the Eagles?
Very little.
I give them a good chance to beat the Eagles this weekend. I think that's one of the differences between the two of them.
Yes. To me, I think they had their chance. I think they get smashed this weekend.
I think they can play with them. Now you've got Lattimore to play against A.J. Brown. I don't think the Eagles are well quarterbacked. And when you just have a mediocre performance in waiting at quarterback week in and week out, which they mostly do, you can get got. The Panthers almost beat the Eagles the week before this past week. Let's not forget that. It has been, I'm just not impressed. I know they had a really good game against Pittsburgh. That's awesome. They didn't play well, I didn't think, against Baltimore. Really, since the Washington game, they've been there to be had. Let's go to Samant in Richmond on Grant and Danny. What's up, buddy? How are you?
Hey, Grant. Hey, Danny. I would have to say I agree with Danny, because I don't think we can have all 3 dimensions of the game be in sync and on point. It's not about the math. It's not about what's on paper. It's about like the eye test and what's in the feels. And what's in the feels is, for this team to be able to win a playoff game, the offense, defense, and special teams has to come through. Now, how many times has that happened this season? I don't know.
Individually, a couple times.
I'd say, I think they probably played 5 or 6 games like that, but they were all very early in the year. That happened against
to beat a great.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, to beat a great team, I'm assuming we have to hit all 3 and defeat the other side in all 3 aspects. Whereas I think there's a higher likelihood that maybe a defense and the special teams, or the offense and special teams, aren't able to show up and potentially lose us the next 3 games.
So
appreciate you, buddy.
Here's the really good point. If you're going to go to Detroit, Philly, or Minnesota and win a playoff game, you're playing your A game. Maybe not your A+ game. Like if they play a D game, you might be able to beat them even with a B+ or an A- game. But you're probably going to have to play your A game to go win. And that means, to his point, in unison, offense, defense, special teams. He's right. It's been a while since we've seen it.
Yep.
I think the Titans was probably the closest version of that. Place kicking notwithstanding, right? But early in the year, Cincinnati, you could say, I know the defense gave up a lot in that game, but for the most part, I thought that was situational, all 3 phases well enough to win. Definitely the Arizona game, the Cleveland game. They were closer to that than you think in the Baltimore game, maybe. The Carolina game, for sure. Not since, really.
No.
Maybe one time, at most, since, and that was before Halloween. So I get his hesitance there, for sure. If he's saying they're not going to beat one of the elites. I would also just point out, I don't know if the Lions are the same team we've been fearing all year, right now, or by the time that you would go to Detroit.
The way it's trending, yeah.
It is very possible that the Detroit Lions in that game will have lost, let's say, like 3 of their last 4. And instead of being the 12-1 team that they were a week ago, they finished the year 13-4 or something like that. And on a losing skid, and you're getting a team that is completely banged up and looks like a shell of itself.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Detroit is trending. Now, they're winning these games. They deserve credit for that. They're still good. I'm not telling you they're, a disaster and they can't get out of their own way. But they were, as of a few weeks ago, beating teams by 40. Just real casual. Now you're eking out a W on Thanksgiving against Chicago. You're eking out one against Green Bay, who probably, easily could have won that game. You lost here to Buffalo, where your defense is taking on water.
And they were down almost 20 in that game.
Yeah, it's not trending in the right direction for Green Bay. So they're not the buzzsaw that they were a month ago, which happens. It's the league.
And it's not just like, oh, that's a 3-week sample, Danny. How about they've got one of the highest injured reserve counts in the NFL?
Yeah, and that's kind of my point
here.
Yeah.
Key players every single week that are dropping like flies. So I don't know. Yeah, the idea of playing the Lions a month ago, 2 weeks ago, seemed like mission impossible. It might not be as big a deal as you think by the time you have to play them. Let's go to Jay in Southern Maryland. What's up, Jay?
Hey, Jay.
Hey, what's going on, Grant Danny?
Buddy.
Yeah, I think, we talking about Philly, and I definitely agree that we can beat Philly. Jaden was not 100% the last time we played Philly or Dallas.
That's true.
So I think, I like our chances. I think that, we're talking about how Detroit is weakening and, we making play with the Rams. We should be able to. I honestly think that there's a chance that we can make a run at a Super Bowl. And the reason why I say this is because I think Jaden is finding his stride as far as like what NFL defenses are giving him. So I think he's taking what he can get and also looking for the big play as well. Now, what I don't agree with him scrambling and only getting 1 yard sometimes, because sometimes that can be dangerous. We all seen, NFL quarterbacks get hurt, in those time frames with, big defensive ends and outside linebackers burn down on them. And you can't get out of bounds in times, and it's an ankle injury somewhere.
Jay,
that's
I got to ask you a question. Because I don't want to break up your rhythm, but I do got to ask you a question. So you're saying you could see a Super Bowl run possibly, right?
Yes.
You're
absolutely.
saying that hours, a lot of them, but hours after they almost lost to the Saints and completely collapsed.
Yes.
And 2 of their last 3 games are an L to the Cowboys and a 2-point conversion away from an L to the Saints. And you've lost your number 2 receiver, your pass catching running back, and now your tight end are not going to play this weekend. None of
absolutely.
You're not bothered at all.
Those things
not at all.
Work together, do they?
Well, no. Of course, there can be some hiccups in the game, but I think that we actually have a chance. I think once you get in the dance, you got as good a chance as any team in the NFC.
Gotcha. So for you, it's just getting in, and then you kind of reset. Here is the only thing I can kind of agree with him on in terms of when they get there. Let's see. Before the Bengals game, my point before we'd ever seen a Monday night primetime Jaden Daniels game was no one was giving Washington a chance. I think they were 7.5-point dogs, maybe 8-point dogs. It was the biggest underdog of the week in the NFL. And going into that game, the thing I kept saying was, what if Jaden Daniels just does the thing? Like, what if he just has an outrageous, ridiculous, I'm a dude game because he's good enough to? And it's a Heisman Trophy game for him. And he had it, and they won, right? But in the playoffs, why can't he do that? Why can't, how many players in the conference are better football players, better playmakers, more impactful electric weapons than Jaden Daniels? Right now, this moment, I'm about to say something crazy as they play the Eagles this week, but is there a reason Jaden Daniels can't outplay Jalen Hurts in a playoff game? Not to me. Not if you watch Jalen Hurts the last 2 years. Because the guy that played against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl is not the same guy, in my opinion. But okay, so maybe he outperforms him, whatever. But I'm saying Jaden Daniels could be every bit as good or better than him. Jaden Daniels can't outplay Jared Goff in a playoff game? I disagree with that. So I think he gives you a chance as an equalizer, Denzel Washington style, to just go out and shock somebody.
Yeah, I mean, because that's what would be required here, in my opinion.
Right.
Right. It's a put your cape on type game. Now, can you do that 3 times or however many times you'd have to go win a Super Bowl?
No,
I don't know.
And
I think that's too
disagree
hard.
with him about going on a Super Bowl run.
Yeah.
I'm talking about winning a playoff game.
Totally, I get
I'm
you.
talking about against Minnesota. Sam Darnold throws 2 picks and Jaden Daniels has a crazy game, and you just beat the Vikings.
Because it's like it's Terry McLaurin or bust in the passing game, and good luck. Here we go. And he's got to be Superman.
But he runs for 71 yards and a touchdown.
That's the only way.
And they scheme their way. Like this past week, you look at the stat line, you'd think he was Peyton Manning. I mean, he was like 20 of 26 for. He missed 3 throws. It could have been touchdowns. It could have been a 350-yard game in New Orleans. Like they, without weapons, with only Terry McLaurin. And I know the Saints aren't as good as some of the teams they'll be playing. I don't want to deal with Brian Flores in that defense. I can promise you that. Let's go to Dana in Waldorf on G&D. What's up, Dana?
Hi. Thanks for taking my call.
You got
I
it.
listen to you guys all the time. But I agree with the last caller. I mean, I just really feel like we can make some noise in the playoffs. Now, I don't know about the Super Bowl, but just like you were just saying, we have Jaden Daniels. He's a game changer. You know what I'm saying? And the way that he's been playing, and now that he's healthy, I think that we can make a lot of noise. And I think some other things that we need to point out, because I know it seems like a lot of times people are critical about what we've done. And I know, one of those losses was to the Eagles, which was close. Pittsburgh just by 1 point, but again, Jaden was injured. So I agree. Now that he's healthy, and we get out there, and I just think that we're definitely going to make some noise. And let's point out the Eagles, they were very close to losing, I think, to the Titans. You know what I mean? So it's just, you got these teams that are losing to some of these teams that they shouldn't lose to.
Including Washington, right?
Kinda...
with Dallas.
Thank you.
And almost with the Saints. It's a good phone call. Is that, and I'm not poking at the callers here, but it does seem like this is happening. We're now doing when Jaden Daniels was struggling, he was hurt thing. Is that kind of, we're just putting that in pen and that was the problem? And we're putting a pin in it and moving on?
I mean, I think it's the most likely explanation, but I'm not ready to slam any kind of gavel and say I know unequivocally that's what it was.
Well, maybe I'm speaking what I'm trying to say. He obviously wasn't quite the same, but the idea is like when he wasn't playing well for several games there, well, it was because he wasn't healthy. I'm not sure if that was the whole kit and caboodle. I think it was a factor, but like I agree. I just made the point. I think Jaden Daniels could be electric. The best version of him can win you playoff games. But we have seen him struggle. It's not like he's a rookie. It's not like you can't go out there and have a really tough game against the Eagles this weekend. That game in Philly, which was weeks and weeks removed, the injury was a month before that, by the way. Like the Dallas game, same thing. I mean, that was a rough game, I thought, for the most part. That was 5 weeks after his injury. He played better than that a week or two after his injury. I'm just not as willing. I think I'm noticing that more and more the further we get away from it was like his rough patch was just because of his injury and not like he was struggling a little bit. That's all.
Okay. Yeah. I think anybody that always wants to make it one thing in nearly every conversation or argument is going to turn out to not be correct. But to me, it's the largest factor. Certainly him not being right. Again, I go to that like,
why was he more hurt against the Eagles and the Cowboys?
I think something else happened. I think there was a tweak where he all of a sudden
wasn't the injury that he suffered against the Panthers as much as
I think that was the most significant thing.
Yeah.
And then I think there's another point in time where I don't know if it's an aggravation or there's a tweaking. I don't know. My theory is against Pittsburgh and with TJ Watt got him or something. But I just can't unsee that moment in Philadelphia where he's got to move. He's got space. There's a linebacker, and he just sort of does this kind of listless drift and sort of goes down. And I'm going, that's not the same guy. So I don't know anything other than that.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily equate to everything. It doesn't, a throw that he missed or a receiver didn't see. I mean, to me, part of the blame is you go to Philadelphia, Terry McLaurin lines up on the left against someone that locked him down. You never go that way. That could be Cliff. That could be Jaden. That could be Terry. That could be a million things. That's not an injury-related thing. That just is. So that's a factor. There are a million factors when he wasn't playing well. But I think that's the biggest one is that he wasn't right.
Yeah, it's still just hard for me that he got worse the further away from the injury during that stretch. Now, if we're assuming or just kind of declaring that he got hurt again somewhere along the way, I could believe that, but we're just making that up.
Sure, yeah, it's my theory. I got no proof.
It'd be nice that every time you struggle, the assumption is that you must have been hurt. I hope that I hope I get that benefit too. It's like he did a bad show. Must not have been feeling that well that day. I'll just assume that. Not that he had a bad game, because people have bad games. Let's go to Jason in Bethesda. What's up, Jason? How are you?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Hey,
It's a really tough question. Honestly, before yesterday, if you had asked me that question, I probably would have sided with. I feel like we're more likely to win a playoff game than miss the playoffs. But Kirk Cousins getting benched to me changes the whole dynamic of that game. It's the way he had been the worst quarterback in the NFL the last 5 weeks, bar none. Michael Penix, he's a rookie. We've never seen him play. Just the element of surprise. I feel like Penix starting. We'll see what he does against New York this week, but I feel like that makes it more likely we lose that game. And I feel like we're more likely to lose to a Kirk Cousins-less Falcons team than stun, the Eagles or Lions on the road in the playoffs. One other caveat you mentioned earlier, possibly moving up to the 6th seed. We don't necessarily have to win out to get the 6th seed. I feel like if we win 2 out of 3, we somehow get lucky and Green Bay loses 2 out of 3, we have the better conference record. So I think if we go 2-1 and the Packers lose 2 of 3, we would jump them for the 6th seed.
You're asking the Packers to go 1-2 down the stretch, though, which is hard for me
against
to
the Saints, Vikings, and Bears.
Yep. I mean, I guess his important caveat is if we get lucky.
This would be the path.
Yeah, they would have to lose 2 pretty ugly losses. To lose to the Saints, who would do that in a playoff push?
It's not going to come down to that.
And the Bears, I can't figure. I think it's more likely the Packers beat the Vikings and win out and go 13-4 and win the damn division at that point than that happens. But yeah, it is possible that you could get some help in that regard. Let's go to Ian in Vienna on Grant and Danny. What's up, Ian?
The beauty of sports radio is the fans. They are so excited. But like we keep saying, this team's yet to beat a team with a record over 500. They almost lost to the Saints. They almost lost to the Bears. And I think what I struggle with is that when we poke holes at other teams, fans almost seem to forget what happened with our team. And so it's like, Philly almost lost to Carolina. Well, what did you do? And then the other point, like you said, on the hurt thing, I think it's perfectly said by you, Grant, that you can't chalk up his injuries when he loses, but not when he wins. Because at this point of the season, everybody's hurt to some degree. And you're right, Detroit's getting a lot of IR players. Well, so's Washington. Washington, between Eckler and Ertz and so. Like, I think it all evens out. And like I said, I think I called you guys on Monday. I think the answer to your question is, I just don't see them winning a playoff game when teams are locked in and focused against elite teams. So whether it's a 2 or a 3 seed that they're playing on the road, I just have seen no evidence of it. The evidence I've seen is they beat bad teams for the most part. That's what we've seen over X number of games. And Grant, your point of, they beat Cincinnati. Well, that was week 3. We have a lot more data now that shows what this team is.
Yeah, it was a better win at the moment of the victory. And to your point, and we talk about this on the show quite frequently, there is no quality win on the resume. If we're doing this, like, let's get into the NCAA tournament, who was their best win against?
Yeah, that's not a good RPI, right?
It's 7-7 Arizona, but they do have 2 games coming up that could change that. A win over a winning team, 8-7 Atlanta at that point, I believe. Let's see. Yeah, if Atlanta beats the Giants,
they beat the Giants,
they'd be 8-7. So there's your winning record, playoff caliber team, playing against the rookie, obviously, in his second game in Penix. But the big one is this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
If they go out and they beat the Eagles, I think it puts a lot of stuff to bed.
Sure does.
Number 1, they're on to the playoffs with some momentum. Number 2, they will have won 3 in a row, and that 3-game losing streak is way in the rearview mirror. And then they've got their signature victory for the season. And now a playoff game against Philly doesn't feel as insurmountable. A playoff game against an injured Detroit team. Well, you just beat 12-2 Philadelphia. Why can't you go beat the Lions who are super banged up? I think it changes the whole landscape.
100%. Yeah. Because of what came before it.
But if they lose handily, like 27-10 or something like that, then I think what Ian just said is correct, where you look at it and there is a little bit of fool's gold maybe going into that Atlanta game. They'll win that, hopefully. They punch their ticket to the playoffs. Still a victory of a season, still an amazing year in year 1 with a new regime.
You get to 10 wins, you did something right, man.
But it's like there's no style points to that.
Right.
I'd love some style points.
I mean, to me, you look at what the Chargers are doing now in year 1 of their regime. Washington, very similar. You don't apologize for just beating up on bad teams in year 1 of a rebuild, right? Like, now, it just means that our eye line for this year and what to expect with this house money has changed a little bit. I think that's fine. big picture, again, we always try to remind everybody, let's spin the two plates. Let's do both parallel conversations. You get to 10 wins in a year that's usually reserved for 4 or 5 as you're expelling everybody that was part of the stink of the old regime out of the building. That's usually what happens. This is not the usual. We're in non-usual territory. Just because Houston did it last year doesn't mean it's not incredibly rare. And it's happening right now, and I'm not taking it for granted.
Friday, the show is live from the Crystal City Sports Pub from 2 to 6:30, 4.5 hours. You can come hang out with us as we preview the Eagles matchup on Sunday. Remember to go get your tickets to the 106.7 The Fan live event that we announced today. Tickets are just now available. Tally Ho Theater, January 31st, about 6 weeks out. A Friday night, 7 p.m. show. The Junkies, B. Mitch and Finley, myself, Danny, all the producers, everyone will be out live on stage. Should be a really, really fun evening. If you missed any part of the show, including DC Council member Charles Allen, who's going to be, it sounds like, in opposition perhaps of a new stadium for the Commanders at the RFK site, go podcast us, thefandc.com. Big thanks to Darius and Ryan for Danny. I'm Grant saying so long. We're back at 2 o'clock tomorrow.
Thank you for coming.